Thank you for joining us here today for our Cleanup Connection webinar. Thinking this webinar is probably going to be about 30 minutes or so, so maybe not as long as some of our others, but I think it will be very informative for everyone. Just a quick agenda. I've got a couple of slides here at the beginning, overview of Hagerman Company and our other connection products, really just one slide on each just to touch base, and then we'll get right into our Cleanup Connection software, which is, of course, what everyone has signed up and joined us here for today. And then, as I actually mentioned, at the end, we'll have a Q&A where people can type their questions into the Q&A panel. So Hagerman Company, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we've been around for over 34 years now under the same ownership and management the entire time. So we've been a very stable, successful organization. Over time, we've spread offices really over the entire United States. So we cover the entire U.S. and do project work outside the United States as well. And we've been doing data management projects, which is kind of what Cleanup Connection ties into, for over 23 years now. We've done over 1,200 successful customer projects, and we work with multiple different systems, which again, Cleanup Connection is really independent of any particular data or document management or PDM software, or even if you don't use that type of software, Cleanup Connection can still be of benefit. And Cleanup Connection is part of our connection line of products. Some of you may be familiar with the others like QVP Connection, which is a search view print tool we have, AutoPlot for batch printing and plotting, Lifecycle Connection, which goes specifically with Autodesk Vault for doing email notifications with Vault Lifecycle workflows, Project Connection, also working in conjunction with Autodesk Vault for managing engineering projects and the files associated with them. And then Backup Connection, which is a utility for monitoring and reporting on the status of your Autodesk Vault backups, which is obviously a very important thing to anyone who uses Autodesk Vault. So getting into Cleanup Connection, the idea is, if your organization is struggling with issues and challenges of having multiple copies of the exact file in multiple locations around your network or on user drives, and then people struggle to find the correct file, it may be exact duplicates of the same file, or you could have different versions of the same file around on your network and personal drives. So then making it a problem for taking time to find the correct file, or maybe find the file at all. Then if you find it, is it really the right one? And then if somebody actually uses it, that can have disastrous results, or files could just be stored in the wrong folders or named incorrectly. This is a challenge or problem we're hearing of more and more from many of our customers, whether they're in discrete manufacturing, more plant or process, facilities, or really anyone who needs to manage and keep track of their files. And then Cleanup Connection is something we've developed in conjunction with some of our other customers to solve those problems and challenges. The first project where Cleanup Connection initially came about was we were called in to work with what is the largest plant in its industry in North America. I don't want to really divulge more than that here publicly. And this plant was built between 2007 and 2010, and it involved over 6,000 actually simultaneous construction workers on site at the same time, and so probably double that over the course of the project, but over 6,000 working at the same time on site. So really a huge facility. And that project involved over 500,000 engineering, construction, and equipment drawings and files that were mostly done and supplied by outside engineering firms, contractors, equipment builders, and so on. During the life of the project, they used a cloud-based project collaboration software for sharing the files between all of these parties, with their drawings and documents being DWG, TIFF, and PDF. Once the project was completed, then, of course, people in the plant required ongoing 24/7 access, whether those people be in engineering, operations, maintenance, etc., but no actual on-premise document control was implemented post-construction. So they had the cloud-based tool, which was nice for collaborating with all different parties on the construction project, but once they went into operation, no on-premise document control was put in place and files were just in Windows folders. The result of that was, by the time we got called in, they ended up with about 4.8 million files, about an 8 to 10 times increase in what they really should have. And the case where there's, again, like I showed in a couple slides ago, multiple copies of the exact same file spread all around, the exact same file content duplicated in DWG, TIFF, and PDF, where someone may have updated a DWG, published it as TIFF or PDF, and then multiple differing versions. So it's the same file name, but different contents. And it could be the same file name with a different extension. So, to operate the plant, repair things, send files out to get repair parts built, has become a monstrous problem, as you can imagine. Now, they had the goal to implement Blue Cello Meridian, which is one of the products we handle to bring this under control, but with 4.8 million files that were kind of redundant, overlapping, made that implementation almost impossible. And so Cleanup Connection was developed to help solve this problem. Now, as we get into it, Cleanup Connection, there's no way it can 100% resolve it, but cleared up about 80% of the issues. So Cleanup Connection was originally developed specifically for this customer, and what Cleanup Connection did was we went out and scanned and logged the data on the file contents of all their network drives and user folders. And what was logged was the name of each file, what computer and folder it was located in, file name, date and time, and size. And then based on that, we were able to flag all the redundant files based on files having exactly the same name, format, and size. We also do have an option to use what's called the hash code to do an even better check for redundancy. Also, they had the situation where they could have a TIFF or a PDF the same name as a DWG, but be older. So we wanted to flag that because a TIFF or a PDF would be published from a DWG. So to be current and accurate, it had to be newer. And they also had us mass convert all the TIFFs to PDF. So every scan drawing would be PDF. And then we merged all of the PDF files with the same name to single multi-page PDFs with the pages arranged in descending date order based on the date of the original PDF or TIFF. So if they had multiple versions of the same drawing in PDF, there's only one file. And then someone out in the plant would just find and open up that file. Then they could quickly tab through the pages to find what was current. Instead of having 10 or 12 files out there, it's one file, and they can just go through the pages with most likely what they want being on that first page. And then also, we move the files to a new, better organized folder structure based on some rules we developed based on current folder location, file name, and so on. So the end result was we were able to reduce that file count that they had by about 80% to cut that mountain back down to size, so that then they're able to continue on with their implementation of Blue Cello Meridian. So cut that implementation time hugely, and then going forward in terms of operation of the plant or trying to do engineering projects, reduce the lost time just scouring around for files, reduced errors from using outdated files, which if you're in a chemical plant or a steel plant or a utility, using an outdated file can be disastrous. And then enabled correct files to be found and sent out for any new plant engineering projects. Getting more into the detail of the software, our Cleanup Connection software, which is now of course commercially available for any customers, is really broken into 3 components, with the first component and the third component really being standard and off the shelf for any customer or any project, and then the middle component being more customized. Where the first component is the scan module, where we can specify what file types to scan for, and then what computers and folders. And then the scan runs and will log all the file names, folder locations, dates, sizes, etc. to a database. Then previous to running that, or kind of in conjunction with it, we work with each particular customer to develop their rules module, which is based on a particular customer's specs, needs, current situation. And then the rules module will flag redundant files, flag outdated files, flag which files to keep, based on rules, can establish new file names and new folder locations. So if files are misnamed, we can logically use portions of the file name or the folder location to set a new file name and folder location going forward, and can also extract additional metadata or search properties from the current file names and folders, such as building, area, project, vendor, and so on. And then it updates fields in the database based on the above, and then our execute module will then copy and rename the desired files to a new, better organized folder location, which may either mimic the current folder location or establish a new, improved, centralized, cleaned up folder location, either for everyone to go to find files, or those files are now ready to import into a document management system like Blue Cello Meridian, Synergis Adept, or Autodesk Vault. And the execute module is also where we can perform file conversions, for instance, converting TIFFs or JPEGs to PDF. Just some screenshots from the software. This is really more showing and focusing on the scanner module. We can see the user interface and some of you can see the options here in the pull down menu. We got configuration, scanner, computer, reports, settings. Not a whole lot to show here. I mentioned hash keys before. The one project we did that I mentioned, our rule was if a file has exactly the same file name, extension, and file size, we will flag the files as redundant exact duplicates of each other. In some cases, that could turn out to not be true, and inside every file that's stored on a Windows computer has what's called a hash key. And the hash key is 100% accurate as far as being a duplicate. So if anything is changed about the file, even if it's the same name, extension, and file size, the hash keys will be different. So we can also base our redundancy check on the internal hash keys inside of files. And then a little bit more on the configuration. Typically, our scanner logs all the information to a SQL Express database, Microsoft SQL Server Express, which is nice because SQL Express is powerful and SQL Express is free, so that's good. In the setup, you can specify which file types to scan for. So if you're not really concerned with finding and cleaning up Excel files, Word documents, only file extensions that might be drawings or CAD data, whether they be DWG or Inventor files or TIFFs or PDFs, we can specify which specific DWG files to scan for. Then when you go to scan a particular computer, there's some settings as far as what folders or directories you wish to scan, which ones you wish to skip, and so on. And then this is kind of a screenshot as far as the scanner running and reporting as it's running the scan on a computer as it's going. And then here you can see the results in a SQL database where it's logged the name of the computer that each file was on, the full name with the path, with the computer name, the path, and the file name, then just the file name, the extension, the size, when it was created, modified. So all that is just based on the file itself. This is when the scan was run, and then calculated file name, copy destination, local copy deleted. Those are fields that our rules engine would fill in, stating where Cleanup Connection would, whether this file is marked as one we want to keep, so it's going to be copied to our new cleaned up location, and if so, what folder and file name is used for the new validated copy of the file. So I guess some of the other features, some of these we've hit on. You mentioned we can move and copy files to a new improved folder structure based on rules you give us and parameters of the existing files and folders. We can add suffixes to files, so if something is flagged as an obsolete or old, you can add suffixes to denote that files are obsolete. We can sort files into revision order based on the date and time fields, at least to get an approximation. So if you have 5 DWGs with the same name, but with different date and time dates, you know, we can sort or rename those redundant files based on the date and time to give you an approximation of a revision order. So if somebody goes to open a file, they'll know this one is probably the most current. And I mentioned about filling in the properties and logical renames. A couple of other Cleanup Connection projects that we've been involved in since our initial project. Another company, they're a global carbon fiber manufacturer with 4 different locations. They're actually using AutoCAD and Inventor, so they're using 3D solid modeling. So Cleanup Connection would work really with any type of CAD file. Although if you're working with Inventor or SolidWorks, we'd want to be careful on our rules about moving and renaming child files so we don't lose our assembly references. And this particular company used Cleanup Connection in preparation for going to Synergis Adept. And then another pulp and paper manufacturer, just operating at a single location. Their file types, they had a lot of older scan drawings plus DWGs, and they're doing this in conjunction or preparation for implementing Autodesk Vault. Just a few other things in summary. The way we do cleanup connection, we don't delete any of your existing files or folders, as that could be risky. So what we do is, based on the rules and processing in cleanup connection, we take the selected files that, based on the rules, are ones we want to keep, and those are actually copied to a new centralized specified location. Then those files can be accessed from there in Windows, or that could be your staging location for then importing the files into Vault, Meridian, Adept, or other systems. Then later on, when you know everything is correct, then you could go delete or shut off access to those old locations, where if we had cleanup connection do the deleting as part of its operation, that could be risky. Or if we do some pilot testing, we may want to tweak the rules. It gives us the capability of copying files to this new location, realize, hey, that's not quite right, just delete all that, and then we can run it again with no harm done. And as I mentioned, some people might just want to stay with Windows Explorer and have a good new location for everybody to work out of. And of course, the results, this is saving company time every single day, because you don't have people wasting time trying to find files, which also saves money. Or people may take a shortcut and get the wrong file and build the wrong part, use the wrong procedure, which can also save mistakes and serious accidents. So I think the concept of cleanup connection is pretty simple. So, really doesn't need a long presentation. I mean, a company knows whether they have, if this is an issue for them or not. So if anything here is kind of hitting home, whether, again, you're in a process type plant, discrete manufacturing, education, facilities, if any of these things hit home as far as situations that your organization has and you want to try to address, then kind of the next step would be to contact us, and we can really sit down with you either online or in person and really discuss your current situation, the goals of where you want to get to. Then we'll conduct a review of your legacy files and data to really understand what that current situation is. And then based on that, we would develop a spec and proposed rules for how your files would be analyzed and processed to arrive at where you want to be, and develop the proposal and plan to go along with that. So that is really what I had to cover here this morning, or this afternoon, depending on your time zone or where and when you're watching this, if you're coming back later and watching the recording. So at this point, we can open it up for questions. I think we've got at least one. I'm going to pull out my question panel here, if I can remember how to do that. Oh, so we've got a few here already. One question kind of asking first about cost. The past projects we've done, the total cost in terms of the commercial part of the software already redone, the customization, the customer assistance to run the scanning, our typical projects have been about $15,000 to $20,000 Another question about working with Dropbox. The files would need to be stored locally, where it would not work on files stored in any cloud location. So we wouldn't be able to go into Dropbox and perform that scanning and analysis. But I think with Dropbox you can synchronize the files in Dropbox to a local file structure. Also a question about ransomware. Again, all the files would be locally in a Windows folder or in a data management system, so it would be not any different issue there. User manual with the software and step-by-step. Yeah, we have full instructions with it, and it's actually very simple, but we have instructions on how to use it and configure it. And a lot of customers actually have us run the scanning because it's kind of, you just launch it and go. Then there would also be on the back end, if you are going to a document management system, what the import steps with it are. And it looks like we had a few other questions on licensing and cost. Hopefully I've answered those. Question, will this work inside of Autodesk Vault? Yeah, it actually doesn't work inside of Vault or any of the other systems. It's typically done as preparation to files that are Windows before they go into the data or document management system. Question about just how many companies we have using Synergist Adept, which was one of the systems we offer. We've got about 20 to 30 customers using Adept, I believe, and then Synergist, who makes Adept, they've got hundreds of other customers. Yeah, a question about working continually with a client, or is this more a good one-time cleanup and then it's done? Hopefully the idea is that you run cleanup connection as, and this is a very good question, you run cleanup connection to prepare and clean up your files to then be imported into a document management system, where with the enhanced features and enhanced security in a document management system, as opposed to Windows Explorer, then things stay clean from there. How do you get the date from the file? Actually, that's just in we use .NET programming, and with .NET there is the ability to kind of look inside each file as you scan it to grab those properties. And that's actually grabbing the Windows file properties, not any text or anything that's actually in or showing in the drawing. Any issues if you do not migrate to a document control system? We would recommend going to a document control system because then you do have better control and prevention that's happening in the future. But if you choose not to, you can then work out of this new Windows folder structure. If that's the case, we would probably recommend maybe looking at your security, is that can that structure be kept more read-only? So put some kind of controls in place, because if you run cleanup connection and get everything cleaned up and fixed, but nothing has changed in terms of your security and access, you could just gradually end up back in the same place where you started. How many files were processed on your client projects? As you can see, the first project we talked about, we're up in the millions. And the scanning, I don't have the time, but it's really just a few hours to do the scanning. If we do if we grab the hash codes out of the file, that does take longer to scan. But if we're just going for the file name, location, standard Windows properties, that's actually very fast. And then a question about, can Cleanup Connection find duplicate files with different file names? And the example is that Autodesk changed the file naming convention of Content Center files from one version to the next. We haven't been asked to do that before, but if there is any logical way to compare the file names and know that this is just the new name when the versions changed, we would be able to do that, but we probably would need to get back with you to look at the specific examples to make sure we could do that. Another question, could Cleanup Connection be used to police what is inside a vault and what is outside? Cleanup Connection doesn't do that, but that would actually be very easy to do because the information in a data or document management system is actually in a database. The information in Cleanup Connection is in a database. It would be some additional programming, but that would actually be very easy to do. To do a Cleanup Connection scan and then do a comparison between database tables in the Cleanup Connection database and the document management database. So that's actually a very good question and application to help determine, has this file already been brought into the document management system? So that's not built in now, but it would still use we'd use the scanning module, and then from there have a custom piece that did a database compare and reporting. All right, a lot of good questions on this one. Actually, we had there does seem to be a lot of interest in this because we had 80 people sign up for this webinar, which is definitely a lot higher than at least most of the ones that I do. So it does seem like there is a lot of interest and issues in this particular area for a lot of people. We don't have any other questions right now. So Ashley, would you want to do your wrap-up information? And then maybe while you're doing that, if another question pops in, I'll be ready to answer that after you're done.
Sure, that's fine. Well, thanks, Matt. This will conclude our broadcast if there are no more questions. If you do think of additional questions, you can simply reply to the confirmation or reminder email you received from GoToWebinar, and we can get those to Matt or your sales rep to get your questions answered. Once again, as we close down today, a survey will pop up, and we ask that you take a few moments to fill that out for us. It is helpful. And I don't see anything else, so we will wrap things up. Thank you for attending today's webcast, and have a great day, everybody.